The Mariners pitching staff has been absolutely mollywopped by the New York Yankees over the first two games of this series. Joe and I are going to talk about what's happened in these first two games and what the Mariners need to do in game three, which is today, if they want to salvage a game in this series. We're then going to talk about the MLB Draft. Well, this is the last podcast we're going to do before round one, where the Mariners are going to have pick 3 and pick 35 on day 1. Joe and I are going to talk about who we think the Mariners are going to go with, who they should go with, and kind of what this draft means for the future of this team. We're then going to talk about a trade possibility for Zach Gallen. Could the Mariners go out there and add Zach Gallen to this rotation? Joe's going to give you his Operation Overreaction, and then we're going to talk about the Detroit Tigers series starting on Saturday.
Friday.
What? The weird, like...
because we had them off day on Monday.
Yeah.
Then this Yankee series is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You'll get it. You'll figure it out at some point.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching episode 207 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And this is the Cole Young episode of the podcast. The Mariners' top prospect hit his first major league home run today versus the New York Yankees. It ended up being a garbage time home run and one that barely got out, but a home run is a home run, hopefully one of many to come. And I am joined here, as always, by Joe Lacey. Joe, how we doing?
Awful. Not awful. Could be better, though. And I think a lot of us would share that same sentiment of you wish that you wouldn't have to win the final game of a series to avoid getting swept. But that's how that works if you've lost the first two. And in typical Mariners fashion, or maybe just the way, this is how the world works, Colton, okay? The Yankees playing some of their worst baseball. And then the age-old farm system for the Yankees, as we got used to be called, goes in and helps them get right back on track. Not to say that the Mariners offense hasn't put up a small fight, mainly in the second game, but the first game was definitely a get right game, it looked like, for the Yankees, but it didn't have to be. And it wasn't going that way to start this game. But classic East Coast baseball, no roof, no bitches, and a rain delay that paused Logan Gilbert.
No air fryer.
Yeah. Paused Logan Gilbert. And he was absolutely dealing to start that game. And then the wheels fell off post-rain delay for the Mariners in game 1.
Yeah, 35-minute rain delay led to Logan. He came out and gave up a run in the fifth inning after that 35-minute rain delay. And then he gave up, I believe, a 3-spot in the next inning, a 3-run home run to Giancarlo Stanton. And it's just, Logan has looked like a completely different guy when he came out. Am I worried about Logan a little bit? Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had a quality start since opening day. He's been fine, but he hasn't been Logan Gilbert fine. And this was a game where you look at the first couple of innings and it was like, oh my God, Logan might go a complete game shutout.
I mean, was he perfect to start the game, through the first 4 innings, or he had a no-hitter at least going?
Yeah, he gave up his first hit, I think, in the 4th.
Yeah.
That was it. It was just one hit, yeah. And so it was like, man, this is, we're heading in the right direction. The Mariners hadn't given up a run in the previous 3 games. Then all of a sudden the wheels fell off after that rain delay. And there's a lot that you could point at in that game and say, what the hell, right? You can look at Dan, just leaving Logan in there to kind of struggle a little bit in that 6th inning after the Yankees in the previous inning. Will Warren started to struggle. They pulled him immediately. You have to have such a short leash on those guys after a rain delay like that, because they're not going to be who they were before that rain delay. I'm glad it was a short rain delay so you could just get Logan back out there and have him give you at least another inning and a half or so. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, some interesting calls in that game. They ended up going to Donovan Solano and Dylan Moore in place of Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone when there was only one lefty in the entire Yankees bullpen. And then lo and behold, that spot comes up again later in a big spot. And shockingly, they did nothing. Those two accounted for 5 or 6 of the 27 outs in this game, and they didn't even start the game. So do with that as you will. Obviously, in the end, it didn't matter, Joe, because this game did finish 10-3.
Yeah, there is a silver lining-ish, I guess, of Cal Raleigh passing Ken Griffey Jr. for most home runs by a Mariner before the All-Star break. That is, applaud worthy. Very good. Tremendous season from Cal so far. You wish things would happen under better circumstances, I guess. It's one of those things where I was just waiting for some sort of negativity to come from an interaction or a response from Mariners fans, but I didn't see any. So I'm happy that did not occur, because I would have been very frustrated, just because, yes, this game was a wash ultimately. Like, let Cal have that moment kind of thing. Again, I too would have wanted it under better circumstances, but it's kind of hard to do that when Logan gives up 5, Logan Mina gives up 5. Like, you're not really going to be able to battle back in that situation. Game 2, though, speaking of battling back, there were some great opportunities where the Mariners were battling back in this game. And I said to you right before we started recording, this is one of my least favorite ways to lose a baseball game. I said this on the TikTok and the reel that I posted. Follow us there if you don't. Bang, plug, call to action. So good. I hate when the offense is down, right? You're down. They start putting some stuff together. They're crawling back into it. They're scratching tooth and nail, whatever. And then the bullpen, or whoever's pitching, doesn't necessarily have to be the bullpen, but whoever's pitching just immediately give those runs right back. Just completely deflates any momentum you thought you were gaining on the opposition. Logan Evans did not have a good start. Full stop. Just that's what it is. You're down 6-2. And you get a 2-run home run from Randy Arozarena in the middle of the lineup. It brings you within 6-4. That's within striking distance. And that's half the game left at that point, or a little under half the game. And then Carlos Vargas comes in. And, Vargas has been fine for the most part this year, but it's just so frustrating to me in that moment to give 3 right back to the Yankees. It sucks. And I don't have a different adjective to describe it, because it legitimately, I saw it happening. I'm like, this is my least favorite thing that could have ever happened, ever. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Least favorite thing ever. Huh?
Ever.
Nothing is worse.
Ever.
Who has it worse than Joe Lacy?
Stepping on a rock, stubbing
Better
your
than that.
toe. Way better than watching my baseball team give runs back to the opposing team.
Yeah, this was a rough one. I mean, for the Mariners, again, they didn't allow a single run in that Pirate series. They've allowed 19 runs in the first 2 games versus the New York Yankees. So, yeah, that's just a rough spot to be in.
It is, the Yankees offense is the Yankees offense, and the Pirates offense is the Pirates offense. Does not excuse either side.
Right. When we were looking at the matchups for this series, we were like, you know what, these kind of favor the Mariners, right? You had Logan in the first one versus Will Warren. That feels like a game you should be able to win. Game 2, Cam Schlittler versus Logan Evans is kind of like, kind of a toss up there, a couple of rookies. But then you should feel good about game 3 with Brian Wu on the mound, and you have to. I mean, the Mariners need to go out there and win a game versus the Yankees to keep themselves in the race for the wild card, because the Yankees now have won the season series versus the Mariners. So if the Yankees and Mariners are tied at the end of the year, the Yankees will be taking that wild card spot should it get to that point. The Yankees were first in the wild card race. The Mariners were third in the wild card race. There's now been some ground that the Mariners are going to have to make up here pretty soon, Joe. Game 3, Brian Wu on the mound. You expect him to go 6 innings. This is his last start before the All-Star game.
He better go 6 innings. You can't not do it on the last start before the All-Star break. No.
Okay, question. What if there's a rain delay and he can't go back out there? It's a longer rain delay. Does that count as he didn't go 6 innings?
Of course that would. What do you mean? Does that count? Of course it counts.
That's not his fault. It shouldn't count.
Yeah, but unfortunately that is not how the world works. Colton, we can't.
The world's so unfair.
Yeah. it's a bit there's other things that we could get into with how that plays out, but maybe not on this medium, if you will.
Right.
If
Right.
Brian Wu gets his 6 innings or more, whatever, start streak ruined by a rain delay, I will, similar to what the Benny Gesserit do in Dune, where they create bloodlines and genetic, I will eventually have someone in my lineage that will become the commissioner of Major League Baseball and force every single stadium to have a roof. It will become my life's work to make sure that something like that happens. If Brian Wu's 6 inning start, whatever, is completely derailed by a rain delay. So you had me your face was good for a minute, but you changed the way your eyes were open a little bit, just slightly. You were holding it really well.
Appreciate that.
You
Yeah.
have to have Brian Wu throw a gem in this game. And you mentioned in the last podcast that in his start against the Yankees earlier in the year, he outdueled Max Fried. This is a guy that can quiet a lineup that has scored 19 runs on you in the past 2 games. And you need it because you cannot get swept before heading to Detroit. You just can't. It cannot happen. Not only from the perspective of losing ground to the Yankees, the Red Sox, you're tied with them now.
Yep.
I Bleav.
Yeah.
So, you risk falling out of a wild card spot because you could not contain the Yankees lineup for anything in a 3-game series.
A lot of what we talked about with this series was you can't let Aaron Judge beat you. You can argue that he hasn't, but he's definitely played a role. He had 2 RBI in today's game. Mariners lost by 3. What could have been different if you just walk him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yesterday, the day before, he had a home run. It's a 10-3 game. There's probably nothing would change about that. But nonetheless, that's going to be the key for Brian Wu is contain Aaron Judge. Walk him every goddamn time. I do not care. Stop pitching to Aaron Judge. It's only gone poorly for you. We have something really important to talk about because this draft for the Seattle Mariners is one that is incredibly important for both the trade deadline, right? Because if the Mariners go one way, they could maybe trade some of their top prospects and feel comfortable with the guys that they brought in to replace them. But also, it's very important for the future of this team and what you could do over the offseason. Depending if you draft a starting pitcher, are you more comfortable trading a starting pitcher now this coming offseason, etc.? So I think that when it comes to pick number 3, Joe, you and I both have our preferences. But first, let's talk about some of the guys that we've seen mocked to the Mariners recently. And there's been some interesting ones. Ava Arquette has been a pretty prominent one that we've seen quite a bit. There was an Eli Willits that I saw. I've also seen Seth Hernandez being mocked to the Mariners. So that's an arm you can dream on in Seth Hernandez, but it is not very often that a starting pitcher from high school goes that high because they're just so volatile.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily know if I see Seth Hernandez. There was Ike Irish. There's been a lot. Where is your head at with all the mock drafts you've been seeing?
I do want to say if they draft, say they do go Seth Hernandez at that spot, I think drafting Seth Hernandez at 3 really inhibits how they feel about what they can move at the deadline from their existing prospect pool in the farm system, if that makes sense. Because Hernandez is one, or even if you draft Eli Willits, if you draft JoJo Parker, if you draft either of those 3 at the 3rd overall spot, the prep arm or the high school bat, I think that because they're not going to be able to play until they're 4 years away at a minimum, more than likely. I think that really would inhibit their willingness to move some of the guys at the top that will have an immediate impact in the next year or so, because they don't want to feel like they shortchange themselves with up and coming talent. I think if they draft a prep anything at 3, the players you see moved at the deadline from the Mariners' perspective, should they make notable trades, I think drastically changes compared to what they trade or how they approach the deadline if they do draft Arquette, or if they draft Jamie Arnold, if they go Liam Doyle, if Cade Anderson's there, you probably, I mean, I'd hope they draft him at 3 if he's there. Doubtful that he is,
They
but
better.
you know what I mean? It just completely changes the approach, I think, or at least it would from my perspective. Because you're going to want to trade guys. If you draft someone that's 4 years away, you're going to also want to trade from that existing pool because you just drafted someone that's probably going to be a higher ranked prospect than those guys in your existing pool. Thinking of like Felton and Celestin, or I mean, Jeter Martinez is another guy that's far away. I don't think they want to trade Yorger Bautista this early, but those are some of the names that stand out to me off the top of my head. I think, and it's not the sexy pick at all, but like how much I'm seeing about Arquette and the way that I feel about the crop of prospects that they can trade. If they draft Arquette, you can trade Felton, you can trade Arroyo, you can trade like any middle infielder not named Colt Emerson, and you're probably feeling okay because Arquette and Emerson probably make their debut around the same time. If not, like Arquette a little earlier than Emerson would be my best guess. And then you have your 3 infielders right there of Colt eventually at third if he does grade out that way, or Arquette can grade out to third better, and then Colt sticks it short, and then Cole Young at second base. You have your 3 infielders that you drafted and developed right there, and you can trade and get better like by trading. Yes, Felton has tremendous upside, some of the best upside in the entire organization, but he is 4 years away. Arroyo hit tools amazing. Yes, he's still hitting down in Arkansas. You can probably afford to trade him if you draft Arquette. And I think that that's something that they're going to take into consideration with that 3rd overall pick, outside of how much it would cost to get Arquette to the Mariners versus like drafting a Seth Hernandez. Because like if you draft Seth Hernandez, he is going to cost more than Arquette. As far as like,
especially because he's committed to Vandy.
Yeah, like you'll have to cough up a pretty penny. So like that's why I don't think Hernandez would be on their. I mean, he's on their board, but like he's not someone that I would expect them to draft unless they fall in love with him in the next 4 days. You know what I mean? Where are you at with what? Because I think we both agree that we want them to go arm, and in ranking, I would go Anderson, Arnold, Doyle for what I think would make the most sense. What I think they'll do is Arquette. I want you to say like what you want them to do and what you think they'll do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty on par with what you just said. I would change my arms a little bit. I would say obviously Cade Anderson 1, Arnold 2. I would actually put Kyson Witherspoon as my number 3 above Liam Doyle.
Sure.
But overall, I do think they are gonna go with Ava Arquette. I think that it'll be Cade Anderson or Ethan Holiday 1, the other one 2. If Ethan Holiday doesn't go 1-1, he's not going to go till 4. He'll go to the Rockies at 4. I think Anderson has a chance to go 1-1, which is weird because the Nationals just fired, their GM, their managers. So, like, things are really weird in DC right now, and so it makes it kind of difficult to project where they're going to go with that. But something that Scott Hunter, the Mariners director of scouting, mentioned was that no matter who they draft, it is not going to be a slam dunk in that room because everybody has really strong opinions in the Mariners draft team of certain guys, and nobody is going to be in agreement. So whoever they go with, people are going to be happy no matter what. But there are going to be plenty of people in that room who also think they should have done X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting place to be for the Mariners because, in my opinion, this draft, at least prior to the last couple of weeks, has felt like a slam dunk, in my opinion, that you're going to go, Jamie Arnold or Kyson Witherspoon. I was shocked to see Ava Arquette get mocked so much, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense just for what that means at this deadline and moving forward. The hard part is there's not really guys at the deadline, like big guys at the deadline, that make a whole lot of sense to go out there and get with the firepower that you have, even if you do draft Ava Arquette. So I don't know, but it's a really important spot for the Mariners to be in. I don't think they go prep in this scenario, not at 3, just because of where their window of contention is. If you go with a college player, a pitcher, or a hitter, they can be here literally next season. They don't have to be in the minor leagues that long because they're already 21, 22 years old. They're older. Whoever you draft might be older than Cole Young. So
maybe, yeah.
I think that that's something that you have to look at in terms of eligibility for where they'll be in the next couple of years. So when you're looking at the Mariners pitching staff, right? Is George gone? Is Bryce Miller going to ever be healthy again? I don't know. Like, like what can you expect out of Luis Castillo over the next couple of years? And that if that's the case and you're worrying about replacing them, the Mariners, for what it's worth, don't have a huge crop of arms down in the system right now. Yeah, Sloan, yeah, Senja, but that's it. Like Michael Morales,
You want someone that
like
can slot in ahead of them to
right.
be on par with where your clock is for guys getting into arbitration and exiting club control. And drafting a college arm right now that will pitch for you either next year late or at like 2027 at the latest, that to me makes the most sense for how I would expect the organization to operate. And so I think, like, you say like they don't have arms, and people are like, oh, like, you named the arms. They are 3 years. They are 2028 and later, more than likely. You need someone that can be middle 2026 or 2027 to slot in more than likely, given the way that the rotation is developing, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I would be the most happy in this draft, of course. I think all Mariners fans would be if they can get Cade Anderson. It's not going to happen. Next guy up, Jamie Arnold. Like, that is the guy who I think, and we've been projecting since it was announced the Mariners had the third pick. We said Jamie Arnold's the guy. I think we stick with our gut. I think that the Mariners should go with Jamie Arnold, but I do think they are going to go with Ava Arquette.
It's funny that like it's not like that we're sad or upset with that pick. Like I won't be upset. I think maybe it's a similar sentiment to like what you said Scott Hunter said of there's not a true slam dunk of where we think that they should go. And not that it's an unfortunate circumstance that the Mariners got the third overall pick in a more middle heavy draft class of like picks 20 to 35. Joe Doyle has said countless times, oh, this is where you're going to find the real value. Like you're going to find a lot of great, like better than normal mid-level talent in that range. And it's nice that the Mariners do have a pick in there. It's hard to project where they go at that 35 spot because we don't really know what they're doing at 3 yet. Because if they draft Arquette at 3, they're not going to go a high school shortstop at 35. They could, and that would shock me that would shock me a lot if they did that. Because to me, and I've said this before when we talked about the draft, is every single year it's always been heavy pitchers or heavy hitters or position players in the early rounds. This is the first year I think that I would feel comfortable, and I think that they probably feel comfortable themselves of doing like a mixed bag if they wanted to, if the right player is available for them to go either position player at 3 and then, prep arm at 35 or college arm at 35, someone's still available there, or vice versa. You go 3 with Jamie Arnold or Cade Anderson if he's there, and then you go a prep high schooler, shortstop, whatever, at 35. I think that they have the opportunity to do that with how well that they've been able to draft and develop and also hit on the international class as well. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited regardless. Like it's going to be a fun day just to see what ends up happening. But I think we do need to move to what the deadline could entail, because the yapper, the Colton Swanson of MLB reporters, John Paul Morosi, back on his ish, talking about how the Diamondbacks and the Mariners are a big, they could be a pretty big, they've been big trade partners in the past. And Zach Gallen has had 2 good starts back to back, having a very down year, but 2 good starts back to back. And I'm just going to lump this into my Operation Overreaction right now, right? My overreaction coming into today, I had it before the game started, was I don't think the Mariners need to add a 5th starter. That take has changed after watching what Logan Evans did against the Yankees, because ultimately what matters with adding guys to your team at the deadline is, does it make you better right now? Zach Gallen, I think, would give the Mariners a better chance every 5th day than Logan Evans would. Full stop. And I don't think that's ridiculous to say. Yes, Gallen has had a down year. He's got like a .1 WAR. His ERA is, I think, still over 5. That is not the Zach Gallen that we've come to know from 2022 to 2024. A consistent, top 10 pitcher probably in the National League in general. 2022 was like his big breakout year, like a 2.57 ERA or something like that. He's not that pitcher. He's on a contract year, though. And the Diamondbacks should be looking to move him, would be my best guess. If he starts pitching well in these audition-style starts, I would welcome Zach Gallen to the Mariners, happily, because it makes your rotation deeper. Of course, you probably have to give up Evans or Hancock to get him, I would say, more than likely. You have to be comfortable with making moves like that to get better and to be able to compete here and now. I would prefer them to trade Hancock than Evans, but of course, that's likely not the outcome here. And I don't know exactly what it would cost to get Gallen, because of the arms available, he's probably the second best, or maybe the second. I don't think he'd cost the second most, though. Like, if Alcantara and Edward Cabrera get moved, I think Gallen would be the third most expensive pitcher moved as far as what it would cost to get him, because Cabrera has an extra year of control. And then Alcantara, I mean, he's got a contract, but like he's also
been terrible,
but also a former Cy Young Award winner, right?
Right.
So it's an interesting, development as far as where you expect the deadline to go. I would not have said starting pitching was at the top of my list, and I still don't think it's at the top of my list. But I would happily welcome a pitcher of Zach Gallen's caliber to the Mariners, because it would make the team better for the remainder of the year if he was starting every 5th day instead of Logan Evans, in my opinion.
So I agree for the most part. I don't necessarily know if it would take like a Logan Evans or Emerson Hancock, maybe.
Sure.
But I don't, again, it's hard to tell where the Diamondbacks are at, because they have a lot of guys on contract years right now. You think Gino, obviously Josh Naylor, Zach Gallen, etc. I think, is Merrill Kelly also, or did he sign an extension? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But in terms of where this team is, the Mariners should probably want to add a 5th starter, even if it's in the short term, right? You don't need a guy necessarily next year, because maybe Logan's healthy, or not Logan, sorry, Bryce is healthy. Logan's already healthy. Maybe you feel better about Logan Evans. Maybe, you draft a pitcher in this draft who you think can fill that slot next year. There's a lot of different places you could go with it. Zach Gallen just feels like the perfect guy slotted into the back of the rotation. He doesn't have to be that guy that had a 2.54 ERA with a 1.58 ERA plus in 2022. He could be more the guy that he was in 2024 with a 3.65 ERA and a 1.15 ERA plus. That would be fine, more than fine. And in my opinion, he's making about $13.5 million this year, so we'll call it like $6 million maybe left on that contract for the rest of the year. Who knows where the Mariners and John Stanton actually have their budget set? They say that they're going to, give some leeway to the Mariners. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But I think Gallen is a very, very good fit for this team. And I think that the Mariners and Diamondbacks know each other quite well in terms of trade like acquisitions. Could you do like a Gallen and a Gino? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You look at this year's trade deadline. If the Mariners add Zach Gallen, Eugenio Suarez, and I don't know, a mid-tier reliever, not a back-end guy, but like a mid-tier guy, is this the best deadline they've had since, I don't even know. It's probably better than last year's, where they added Randy, Justin Turner, and Yimi Garcia.
Maybe. I think on paper it has the the potential to. The hard part is if you only add Gino, and like that's the one bat you get, I think that there'd be a lot of people up in arms about they needed to add more offense, because if you're getting a pitcher, like you're getting Gallen, you're probably substituting out another bat unless you really go big. But I mean, the Mariners got 4 players at the deadline last year. The 3 that you mentioned, they also got JT Chargois, who, wasn't much of anything last year, but similar to Jimmy Garcia. Yeah, exactly. Right. Turner was a great addition. Randy Rosarena was a good addition. He's playing a lot better this year. But when you look at the deadlines, at least in the lifetime of this channel, right, that a Gino, Gallen, and then I think that they probably go a reliever that slots in behind Brash ahead of Gabe Spire, I would consider that back end. I think that they would want
like Pete Fairbanks,
maybe someone that is like you would have Munoz, Brash, and then this guy. It puts Gabe Spire as the fourth reliever. It moves Carlos Vargas out of the top four, in my opinion. I think that's where they should go. If not better than Gabe, better than Carlos Vargas is, I think, at the minimum type of reliever that they should be looking to acquire this deadline, if available, which they will be because they always are. Yeah, you could say on paper that that has the potential to be the greatest like trade deadline in, you know, the last 3 or 4 years. The people that say that the Mariners don't need a starting pitcher, and again, maybe I'm, you know, knee-jerk reaction to this start from Evans, because aside from this, he's largely been good. Like, for the most part, he has been very good. But is it like relative to my expectations for him, right? Like, did I expect him to come out and be as good as Brian Wu or Logan Gilbert this year? No. Did I expect him to be about where Emerson Hancock was? Like, a little bit better, but similar to what we got out of Hancock, and he's been much better than that. So it's just hard to fully know what you'll get out of him from the rest of the year as well. And I think having a safety net of Logan Evans, if you can hold on to him and you acquire Gallen, that's never a bad thing either. And Gallen will be gone at the end of the year, and then you just have Evans be the 5 again next year. And it's like, that seems very simple to me. And Gallen wouldn't even have to start in the postseason if you get there. You could go Gilbert, Wu, Castillo or Kirby, and then Castillo or Kirby. You could go Gallen if you felt better about, you know, where it was. If it's an away game, you probably go Gallen instead of Castillo because Castillo's home road splits are pretty terrible. But I think, and again, it is John Morosi. Take it with a grain of salt. You know, what is the validity of this rumor about, you know, Gallen and the Mariners being a fit? I think Gallen being available is very clear. But if the Mariners are interested, like, I'd give it like a coin flip, honestly, whether or not the Mariners are interested in adding a starter. Because I think that they view, you know, corner infield and bullpen as more pressing issues. Because I feel part of my take going into this was they probably feel okay with Evans the rest of the year at the 5. They probably feel okay with it because they've developed him. They know what he can do. They know what he can do. That was weird. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So it's interesting. I am excited for what the deadline holds. If it is a Zach Gallen and Geno trade, I mean, that's going to be cinema. Like, that would be huge. And I don't know if people would be upset about getting a pitcher because then you can't see. I don't think it matters because you'll still retain Evans more than likely. And you have a better chance at winning every 5th day.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to this trade, I'd be fine if they just decide to roll with Evans the rest of the way. Like, I'm not going to, it should not be their priority to go out there and get a starting pitcher. But I think it should be on their radar. It's something where if some of the trades for bats don't come together, you have to get better some way, somehow. Okay, well, if you can't get better offensively, you better make damn sure that you go out there and get better both in the bullpen and on the mound to start games. And that's one way that I think the Mariners could do that, which is probably something that they could use in this upcoming series because game 1 versus the Detroit Tigers, the best team in baseball by record. I don't remember if they're number 1 still or not, but
I feel like they probably are because Dodgers have lost 6 straight and Mets are playing kind of mid. 59-35, a 628 win percentage. No other team has a win percentage above 600. They are the best team in baseball.
Awesome. So cool. You faced Tarek Skubal on the mound in game 1. One of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Super chill versus Luis Castillo. This game is going to be in Detroit. We know what Skubal can do. Castillo outdueled Skubal earlier in the year. We were at that game.
We were.
Yeah, that was a game. And yeah, Joe killed his jacket at that game.
Whoa.
But Castillo pitched really well versus Skubal. The Mariners were able to get a couple of runs off of him. So say what you will about Tarek Skubal, but the Mariners beat him earlier this year. He wasn't the same guy that he is right now, though. He was actually struggling to start the year. How do you feel about this Mariners offense that we've seen over the past couple of days versus one of the best pitchers in all of baseball?
Tigers are 32-15 at home.
Sick.
Castillo has a 4.67 ERA on the road compared to his 2.29 ERA at home. Zach McKinstry just got named to the All-Star game.
Which he shouldn't have.
The highs that the Tigers are riding on, you are at a disadvantage, I think, in every facet against this team. And it makes me mad. Remember when the Tigers were cool? Remember last year when they were sick? Like, it was awesome that they were like, whoa, who are these guys? And now I hate them. And it's all Ben's fault.
It's all Ben's fault.
It's all Ben's fault, dude. In all seriousness, it is. I don't actually hate them. I'm just mad that we have to play the best team in baseball. is ultimately what it is. Skubal is a tough matchup to anybody. It could be alternating lineup of Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, 1 through 9. That's still a tough matchup for them.
No Cal Raleigh?
I was just doing like 2 players, dude.
Well, shouldn't they need 3?
You want 3, like bench warmer style?
Yeah,
Ohtani
like
pitching, Cal Raleigh catching, and then Judge in the outfield?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't matter who's who in that situation because, like, there's not going to be an answer that anybody likes. But Cal is the only one whose name is also 3 letters, so therefore he's Gus.
Oh, I think Cal's John Heater.
Well, I mean, technically he'd be David Spade because David Spade's the catcher.
Right.
But, like, are we happy that he's David Spade?
He looks kind of like Clark.
Yeah, he does kind of look like Clark. That is a good point. Anyways, bench warmer style competition of Shohei Ohtani, Cal Raleigh, and Aaron Judge versus Tarek Skubal. I'm like, dude, Skubal's so good. He is so good. This is a tough matchup. And I'm honestly, maybe I'm happy that it happens in the first game instead of what was originally slotted to be the second game. If you lose the first game, okay, that's fine. Losing the second game, it's like, okay, now you got to win the finale. If you lose the first game, you got 2 chances to win a series still. Right?
Yep.
So I think, like, maybe that's the copium I go with. The Tigers are a good baseball team, guys. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, if we felt at a disadvantage against the Yankees series, like, turn that dial up to an 11, I think, with this one.
And then check, the first series out of the break and realize you're playing one of the hottest teams in baseball in the Astros. And then you play the Milwaukee Brewers to start another 17-game stretch. So a much harder 17-game stretch than the last one. Smile.
I don't know what the Mariners did to deserve such awful heat checks by the scheduler, but, like, what's going on?
Honestly, yeah. Oh, you're the furthest team away. Sorry. Heck you.
Yeah.
Casey Mize has been really good this year. George Kirby is on the mound for the Mariners in game 2, but man, Casey Mize, not as good, obviously, as Tarek Skubal. Most people aren't, but he has a sub 2 point. He has a 2.63 ERA. He's 9-2 with 73 strikeouts. I Bleav, if I remember correctly, when the Mariners faced him earlier this year, I think he kind of carved him up. I could be wrong about that. If I can find his game logs here versus Seattle, he went 5 2/3, giving up only 1 hit, struck out 6.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Skubal went like 5 2/3, gave up 3.
A Dylan Moore home run in that one from against Skubal. Yeah, Casey Mize was looking to be a number 1 overall bust. And then now he's pitching like a the guy that was drafted number 1 overall. I mean, good for Casey Mize for figuring it out. It takes having maybe a Cy Young caliber, MVP caliber type pitcher as your teammate to kind of maybe bounce ideas off of. A sub 3 ERA for Casey Mize. I think George Kirby, his opposition, should be able to give up, put in a good shift, have a good fight out there on the mound, little fisticuffs. Guys, what positive things can we say about facing the Tigers?
Nothing.
Like, don't get me wrong. Sweeping the Pirates was awesome. You scored 1 run in the final 2 games of that series. and then you proceed to give up 19 runs. Well, you only score 9 in the next 2 games. That is our current existing frame of reference to go and play the best team in baseball. Like, it is going to take the Mariners elevating their game, which they can do. They have the ability to do. We've seen it before. Elevate to a level that we probably haven't seen since they were consecutively winning 9 series, I would say. Like, we got to turn the clock back to May. 2 months ago, when this team was good. This team's like fine right now. When the team was good, I would say they have a decent chance to maybe sneak out a series win. I'm hoping they don't get swept. Yes, you have pretty good pitching available for you. Castillo, the road split's not great, whatever. He's a veteran, he's a professional. George Kirby has looked good his last 3 starts out. I like that. And then you get Logan Gilbert versus Jack Flaherty in the final game. And Flaherty is not having as good of a year as he was last year by any means. I know, because I have him in fantasy. He's got a 4.7 ERA right now through 18 starts. I mean, he's still, that's not terrible. His expected ERA is 3.99, so maybe he's just getting a little unlucky. I hope not. I hope that he's, or maybe I hope he still gets unlucky. I don't know what the logic puzzle there is, but opposite Logan Gilbert, right before the end of the All-Star break, I think Logan, or the end of the first whatever, right before leading into the All-Star break, seems like a start that maybe Logan leaves it all out there. Takes in what he had in the first half before the rain delay against the Yankees and puts that all together in the start against the Tigers to put a nice little bow on the first half for the Mariners, hopefully securing a win to avoid a sweep or a series win or a series sweep.
Man, that would be impressive. Yeah, you really need to win game 3 of this series because you cannot count on winning either of the first 2. The first one, I think you're chalked. Like, I think you can just forfeit that one. Game 2, George has been better, but the Tigers are still a good baseball team. Game 3, you have Logan on the mound, your ace, versus a guy who hasn't been that great this year in Jack Flaherty. You have to go out there and win that game. And I do also want to say, like, we're acting like the world is ending right now. During that 17-game stretch we talked about, the Mariners went 11-6.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were good during that 17-game stretch, that last one they just had. This team is so damn confusing when it comes to what they do day in and day out. It feels like there's a different team out there every single day, and it just makes it so hard to predict what they're going to be able to do, especially when you have one of the best teams in all of baseball coming up, and then not an easy schedule coming out of the All-Star break. But hopefully we can get through this series versus the Tigers with a W. That's going to do it from us here on episode 207 of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.